so much. It's a pleasure to be here. Scott will be kind with the timer, I hope. My name is Nick Mark. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Sound Life Sciences. Sound Life Sciences is a digital therapeutics company focused on using sonar to address unmet health needs. We imagine that this technology can be useful to solve many problems, but tonight I'm only going to tell you about one, though it's a big one. I'm sure many of you have heard that opiate overdose is a major problem. To not be hyperbolic at all, this is the worst public health crisis in modern American history. In 2017, over 49,000 people died from overdose, making it the leading cause of death before age 50. As you can see on the map to my right, this is a problem in big cities, in small towns, and in suburbs. This is a problem in red states and in blue. And sadly, despite spending tens of billions of dollars on this problem over the last decade, it's a problem that continues to get worse and worse. What makes this tragedy even more acute, because every one of these deaths is a tragedy, but what compounds that tragedy is the fact that these deaths are highly preventable. Specifically, there is an antidote for opiate overdose. This is called Naloxone. This is highly effective. You can pick this up in any pharmacy. It works incredibly well. How well, you ask? Well, it's estimated that 95% of people who overdose can be saved if they get Naloxone within a few minutes. Unfortunately, however, less than 6% of the people who are overdosing actually get the antidote. So why is there that incredible disconnect? Well, sadly, it's quite simple. The majority of people who are dying, 2/3 of them, in fact, are alone when they overdose. There's no one there with them who can recognize the problem and give them that life-saving antidote in time to help them. Fortunately, however, the vast majority, 94% of those victims, have in their pocket a smartphone. And this is where we come in, because we see the opportunity to use our technology, coupled with the hardware they already have, to help save their life. So let me present Second Chance. Second Chance is a mobile app that runs on a smartphone that converts that phone into a mobile respiratory monitor. The way it works is simple. The person places the phone in front of them, and it monitors their breathing. As many of you probably know, when you overdose, you become unconscious and you stop breathing. If that happens while you're being monitored, you'll see this. It will start alarming. If you don't turn off that alarm, it'll escalate. It'll make a really loud sound like a smoke detector. So if there's somebody who has Naloxone in the next room, they can come help you. If nobody comes and turns it off, it'll escalate one step further. It will activate 911 through a commercial API and pass along what's going on with you, that you're overdosing, and where you are so you can get help in a timely manner. Now, this may seem like a crazy, radical idea, but I would wager that almost every single one of you has already bought into this mental model in your home today. And what I mean is this. You combine a monitor with a highly effective intervention, and then you can take action to avoid tragedy. What we're proposing is the same thing. You combine a mobile respiratory monitor that works using only software with a highly effective antidote, and you can prevent deaths from overdose. So how does this work? Let's go inside that phone and I'll show you. The key is something called frequency-modulated continuous wave sonar. In short, the phone's speaker emits high-frequency sound above the range of human hearing. That sound comes out of the phone, bounces off the environment, and then goes back to the microphone. As you breathe and as your chest moves, it alters the timing and the frequency of that reflected sound. As you breathe and as the frequency changes, our algorithm can actually identify the breathing signal inside, and we can use that to monitor your breathing and call for help if needed. It's also worth noting that if we do this on a smart speaker, where we have an array of microphones, unlimited battery life, we can monitor multiple people at once continuously. So I want to emphasize that this is not just an app, this is a platform. There are icons here, hopefully. I want to emphasize one other thing, too, which is that our mission is to provide this to the people who need it at no cost to them. And so even though we've gotten money from the federal government to do this, we're interested in partnering with the companies that make the antidote, the state and local governments, and the insurers who are paying for the cost of overdose to provide this to the people who need it. Final slide. I want to conclude by saying that this is something which we can apply to many other problems. We can use it to keep elderly people who live alone safe in their homes. We can use it to keep infants safe in their cribs. And we can use it to take better care of people who have chronic medical conditions. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you're interested in signal processing, if you share our passion for using technology to help people, please reach out and contact us. We're hiring. We'd love to meet you. Thank you very much. All right, Scott, do I get to ask questions? Do I get to answer questions?
Questions?
Okay. So it depends on what you're running it off of. If you're running it on a mobile phone, the range is about 1 meter. If you're running it on a speaker where you have more microphones and more speakers, the range is greater, up to several meters potentially. That's right. So
Please repeat the question.
yeah. So let me repeat the question for you, so people in the back can hear. So the question was, do we have partners with the companies that make Narcan, naloxone? The answer is we've spoken to several of them. Several of them are interested. You know, there are a couple different. This is one of the formulations of it. There are 7 companies that make this drug. We're definitely interested in meeting them and working with them to co-brand or to partner. That's a great question. So the question is, why don't people who are at risk for overdose have the antidote with them? And the answer in many cases is they do. The problem is you can't give the antidote to yourself. It's not like an EpiPen where if you start having an allergic reaction, you can treat yourself. Almost by definition, if you need it, you can't give it to yourself. So you need somebody else to give it to you. So another great question. So the question is, where does the phone need to be in order to work best? So the way to think about it is this is sound. It's just like if you're on a conference call or something. It's best if the phone is pointed at you like this. If the phone is at an angle, if it's pointed away, it won't work quite as well. It doesn't work in your pocket. You have to put the phone in front of you. But it's worth noting that this is where putting it on a smart speaker adds some advantages. So imagine if you have this software running on like a bedside speaker. You could monitor somebody continuously without them having to do anything. So the question was, how is it affected by sound in the room? And it's another important question. So we're using high-frequency sound, and fortunately, the world is a fairly quiet place at 18 to 22 kilohertz. There isn't a lot of environmental sound. We've tested it with like music, television, fans, air conditioners, heaters. It works in all of those. If it's next to a really loud source, like a blasting TV, it doesn't work quite as well, but it still works.
I was just wondering, your slide said opiate disorder.
Mm-hmm.
So does that mean everyone that could misuse opiates, whether you're a heroin addict or you just take too many Vicodins, or is it for everyone?
Yeah, another great one. So the question was, who is this for? Who can use this? And to be clear, so there are millions and millions, over 200 million people are prescribed opioids each year in the United States. There's about 35 million people who take opioids every single day. And then there's a couple million people who abuse opioids, including about 1 million people who inject opioids like heroin. So the people who inject are at the highest risk. About 2/3 of those who die are in that population, 1/3 everybody else. The app is focused at those people first, but as we move it onto a smart speaker, we anticipate that this will be something that can be used for all of the people who are at risk. So imagine you have knee surgery and you go home with a bottle of Vicodin and you want to be safer taking it. You could have a smart speaker on your bedside monitoring your breathing when you go to sleep.
One more question?
So the 2 good questions there. I do like the dog question, actually. We get asked that a lot. So we have inadvertently tested this with dogs. We tested this at a supervised injection facility in Vancouver, Canada, on about 209 people, and about 10 of them had dogs with them. And the dogs didn't seem to mind, based on our teams and their owners' opinions. It's hard to ask the dog that question. To the other question of what about other ways of monitoring? What about, if it's in your pocket, could you use an accelerometer? It's a great idea. I think certainly if people were willing to keep their phones in a shirt pocket, that would be a really good option. I think in a pants pocket, it's problematic. I I think there may be many ways to add on to this technology to add sensitivity in other settings, and that might be a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.